Working out consistently? What do you even mean? I'm a certified nutrition coach and personal trainer, and I can't tell you how many times I get this question. So I figured today, this is the perfect opportunity to just dive on in. So let's get into it. The question this time around is, how do I stay consistent this time? It doesn't so much matter what I think on this. It matters what works for you more than anything. So the biggest piece that I'm going to say on this one is all of this is highly dependent on what actually makes sense for you, your life, your needs, your goals, literally everything. The next piece is finding what's reasonable. So like if your goal, saying exercise this one, let's say your goal is to work out 3 times a week. Let's just say that is like a hypothetical statement. Your goal is 3 times a week. Realistically, you've done that before, but lately you've shown up once. Okay, we have a couple of options. We can aim for the stars and say that 3 is appropriate. And I'm saying exercise, not movement, as the main goal. If your goal is movement, extrapolate. It happens quite a bit. But if we're sticking with exercise, like workouts, like a deliberate time to work out, lift weights, that's what I'm talking about. Not like movement as in walking in steps and all that. If your goal is 3 times and you've shown up for 1, but your goal is like, I want to get back to doing 3 times, asking yourself what's a reasonable next step and what's the most likely to be possible, and actually like checking that against itself is really important. So when it comes to going through this stuff, if you want to aim for 3, you've been consistent with 1, what does 2 look like? Or how consistent have you been with doing 1? If your answer is like, I've been consistent with 1 time a week for 2 weeks, then it might be fortuitous for you to do like 1 time a week for the next month and reevaluate. Not to say you can't do more, but if you're shooting for 1 and you exceed it, great. But if you're shooting for 3 and you fall short, all you're doing is establishing like, I just don't really have all that much trust in myself, so I'm going to just keep lowballing it. At least if you say, I'm going to confidently hit 1, I know with 100% confidence I can hit that, great, do that. And then once you've established trust and consistency and built the habit of doing it, then you can stack up another 1 or another bit of time throughout the week. Like it comes into what makes the most sense. So I'm using exercise as one option because for me, it's the simplest to explain off the cuff with no direct like direction from anybody. But this can be applied for so many other things. We just have to figure out what it is that we're aiming for, what it is that's reasonable, and how confident am I that I can truly do that thing. For example, again, if you're confident that you can show up, let's say 6 times for a movement goal, meaning some way or the other, you're going to get 15 minutes, hypothetically, let's say, of movement for 6 days out of 7 of the week. And if you can show up 6 days, you're consistent with it, amazing. Maybe at that point, because that's already a lot in the week, maybe you try to jump up the time or the intensity a bit of those couple of things. So it doesn't always have to be, I'm going to add more volume, or I'm always going to add more days, or like whatever the perspective might be in that sense of what it is that you're doing. It might be a couple different things to make it more demanding, but also place the emphasis on I'm seeing result because I'm taking action on the things I trust myself with, and that in itself is stacking up to help me stay more consistent. But the other, I think, overarching umbrella of this whole conversation, I might just end up ending it here on this, is when it comes to consistency, it's not about just the week. It's not about just the month, and it's not even just about the year. The big umbrella of consistency is how do I show up for the rest of my life? And that is a daunting, large, kind of freaky focal point if we come from it from that point, where I don't so much care if it's 1 time a week at this point, and then it evolves to 3, and then it devolves, quote unquote, back to 1. And it has this interplay because let's be realistic, the ebbs and flow of life sometimes don't allow for things to be as consistent as you once were last year, last week, last month, 5 years ago. As a personal example, for me, before Lily was born about 3 years ago, just barely at 3 years, I was showing up no problem 5 days a week of workout, not just movement, workout. And things were going, things were simple, nothing was crazy. We throw a kid in there on top of the business getting larger, things get more erratic, and it's harder for me to throw in 5 days deliberately of workout. So I have been really good with 3, some weeks 2, and then it ebbs and flows. But the nice piece that I've come to terms with up to this point is I can still push in those times that I've given myself without feeling bad and feeling shame about the fact that it's less than what I was doing before. And I think even the more beautiful piece is we don't always have to stack on more to see a stronger, more beneficial outcome. Just because our outcome might be this thing, and to the book, if you show up to these degrees, it makes all the sense in the world, it works out perfectly. Most of us are not the book. Most of us need to figure out how to ebb and flow to match what it is that our needs are, and staying consistent looks different for everybody. And if we get more comfortable, get more confident with the fact that ebbs and flows happen, it's not a detriment. It's the questions on that piece, if it's a detriment or not, but it's not a derailment of where it is that you're going and what you're working toward. It may not actually add up to be a detriment. It could be a net positive, just because for a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, we put in so much work, so much effort that we end up burning out and overdoing things. And then the outcome at that point actually decreases its likelihood of being as beneficial because we've run ourselves into the ground. So if we look at health as a large umbrella of all these different things, it isn't just physical. It isn't just nutrition. There are so many different avenues to health as a whole that if we look at this holistic approach of health, we can start navigating life a lot differently because it's not just this one or two things. It's on the general lifespan of all these different things. How do I stack up? What things are going well? Do I trust myself enough to continue to show up for myself as I build consistency into my life around my life? The more confidence and trust in yourself you can build, the better off all of this is. So when I say, how do I stay, or when I hear the question, how do I stay consistent this time? It's about establishing trust, and it's about recognizing that consistency looks different for everybody, for every goal, and figuring out more or less what is it that I actually want and reverse engineer from there. You got a question for the next Q&A? Drop it in the comments. If you want deeper support, consider subscribing or joining our coaching community where we host multiple live calls every week. The link's in the description. And if this helped you in any way, please share it with someone who's also working on their health too. And remember to stay active, eat mindfully, think positive thoughts, and let's get after it.